Hello. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed making that. I'm glad you watched the video and got something out of it. It's great. You'll have to let me know how the smoothie goes then. For people joining from other locations, I did a couple tutorial videos on some snacks to have in the evening, which is interesting because we're about to talk about nutrition and sleep. So if you want to pop over to our Forming Connection Facebook page or our Health Promotion Instagram, then you'd be able to see that. Okay, I'm just going to give one more minute here just so that there's still some people just joining in. All right. Okay, so welcome everyone. There might still be some people that pop in just because I don't see everybody that has registered so far, but that's okay. If they join us, great. If they don't, then we have an awesome group already, so we're good to go. All right, so welcome to today's session. Before we get started, there is some information I need to read off. So if this is not your first one, you'll know what I'm about to do. So the presentation you are about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense. Any reproduction or retransmission of the slides contained in this presentation is strictly forbidden. Some of the topics discussed in this webinar may be of a sensitive nature and not appropriate for children, so we do ask for parental discretion. Today we're going to be talking about nutrition, physical activity, and sleep. Not really anything of a sensitive nature, however, it is geared toward adults and not children necessarily. Please understand that people's stories are theirs alone to tell, and anything that is shared by participants in this webinar, either on camera or in the chat, is not to be discussed outside of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing later on cafconnection.ca. Though active participation is encouraged, you may simply follow along without using the chat and/or the video microphone functions if you prefer. So if you are new to my sessions, I will reiterate, I don't turn on the mic or video functions for people during the session, unless you ask me at the end during the question period, if you'd rather ask a question verbally versus type it out. With a lot of people, sometimes it can be difficult when people forget to turn off their mics and things. So we just kind of keep it off status quo. But feel free to please engage using the chat function that I see quite a few of you are already chatting in. And we'll be using some polls as well so that you can, I'm going to close that window. Sorry about that. It's a nice day. I had the window open because it's nice out. But yeah, so we'll be using some polls as well for you to do some engagement. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned, today's session is about nutrition, physical activity, and sleep. It's a quick session as per most of the Sleep and You series. If you are new and you haven't seen me before, my name is Lisa Fisher, and I'm the Health Promotion Specialist from Four Wing Cold Lake. So welcome. First, we're going to do our poll. And again, if you've been coming on here a few times, then you know what I'm about to do. So I'm going to ask you here, what is your affiliation with the CAF community? And that is supposed to be a question mark. So are you a serving member, a veteran, a family member, a civilian employee, or other? And I will mention that I do know that some of our civilian employees might also be veterans, but just pick the one that describes you best at this time. Okay, so most people have answered. We've got a few holdouts right now, but hopefully they'll answer that. So we have majority are serving members today. We've got a family member. We've got quite a few civilian employees as well, and a couple others. So welcome. I know some of you have already kind of said hi from wherever you're from, but if you want to post in the chat box where you're joining us from, your city, your province, however you want to go, if you're OCAM, where you are. Alberta, Borden, Trenton, Halifax, Keswick. Okay. Barrie, Frankfurt, Esquimalt, Essex, Sudbury, Cold Lake, Ottawa, Cold Lake. Wow. Prince Albert. We have people from everywhere right now. That's fantastic. Halifax. Okay. Well, hopefully your weather is great wherever you are. Our weather has been beautiful yesterday and today, which is lovely. I have some clothes out on the line and everything, which was nice after a few days of rain and 0 degrees. So Cold Lake's not 100% sure if it wants to be spring or summer yet. Sunny Moose Jaw, perfect, great. All right, let's get started then. So our first section we're going to cover is nutrition and sleep. So I'm going to ask you a little question here with the poll, and you can just pick true or false. The question is, snacking after supper is a bad idea. Is it true or false? I'm just asking this question just so I can kind of see what you guys think, because I think that this is a question that gets thrown around a lot and people talk about it quite often. Okay, so everyone has answered. So most people think that this is false, and a few definitely think that it's true. All right, so we're going to see what the answer is on the next few slides here. Okay, so here's the slide. We're going to go from point A to point B. So how can sleep deprivation lead to weight gain and obesity? So we've talked about how sleep deprivation can lead to a couple other issues, right? We talked about the effects of sleep deprivation. So how can it specifically lead to obesity? So let's go through this and see how it goes, okay? So essentially, when we are sleep deprived, it affects our hormones, okay? So those include leptin and ghrelin, and we'll go specifically into those on the next slide. But our hormones are essentially affected, not just those two hormones, but all of our hormones are affected when we are sleep deprived. So this actually can increase our hunger. And so, of course, if we are more hungry, we're likely to eat more food, right? So therefore, potential for obesity. And I will say that when we go through this, many studies have shown that there is a higher likelihood for somebody to be obese when they lack sleep. So if you're somebody that maybe struggles with their weight a little bit, then that might be, something that you should look at if you're not sleeping well. Could be also many different other reasons why people struggle with their weight, but this is one of the things that can kind of affect it for sure. All right, next section here. So what else does sleep deprivation do? So hedonic. So when we look at hedonic hunger, that's the drive to eat, so we can obtain pleasure in the absence of an energy deficit. So there's a few different things we have listed here. We have reward, increased time to eat, fuel for brain. So increased time to eat, if we're not sleeping, we're awake longer, right? So that's just simple math. If we're awake longer, we have more time that we could eat food, okay? When we lack sleep, essentially the blood level of endocannabinoid is raised. So this acts in the brain in the same way a very similar way that cannabis does, making the act of eating more enjoyable. So if you eat, you feel better, especially if you eat in the evening. So when we look at that, we're not just hungry for, carrot sticks, we're hungry for specific types of food. And those are essentially our comfort foods. So those high in sugar, those high in fat, those things that make us feel good. So that's what we would be looking for. And that's, based on endocannabinoid, but also because of glucose deregulation in our bodies. So when we have that glucose deregulation, our body's going, hey, I want more sugar, feed me sugar. And we're going, okay, we feed it sugar, we feel good. Our body goes, oh, I need more sugar. We do it again. And it's just a vicious cycle that is, of course, going to add on those pounds, but also increase our risk of, diabetes, those types of things that I mentioned in a previous session, right? So for example, not going to be looking for carrot sticks, you're going to be looking for cookies or chips. People who also don't get enough sleep, they've been found to eat 2 times the amount of fat and 300 extra calories in the following day compared to those who sleep 8 hours. So if you're sleeping, less than 7 hours, there is the chance that you may be consuming even more fat and even more calories than somebody who is sleeping the 8 hours duration. And I mentioned, of course, the more time that we're awake, more time we have to eat. So potential for obesity there. And the last part here, physical inactivity, right? So that can lead to obesity. If we're sleep deprived, we are tired. Okay, so when you're tired, you do not want to be physically active, right? That takes energy. We don't have energy. So if we are less physically active, there's potential for us to be, packing on some more pounds, especially if we're consuming more fat and sugar and we're not working it off, and we're being very sedentary. Then of course we're increasing those pounds. Also increasing other health issues than just that, right? Not mentioned here as well, but I do want to mention when we also are tired, there's less likelihood that we're going to want to spend time meal planning or prepping or even making healthy meals. So if you've ever been, exhausted or you just had a bad night the night before, you may have felt, hey, I don't feel like making my own meal. I'm going to go run to McDonald's, or in Cold Lake, it's pizza. There's a million pizza places here. It's ridiculous. So it's kind of interesting because you'll see Domino's going all the time, right? So maybe those people are like, oh, I'm tired. I'm just gonna grab my Domino's pizza, right? So there's quite a few reasons why sleep deprivation could potentially lead to weight gain. I do want to go into those hormones a little more specifically here, so to give you an idea. So when we're talking about our hormones, when we are sleep deprived, the hormone leptin is decreased. Okay, so leptin essentially is the one that suppresses our appetite. So it's the one that when we eat, it says, yep, you're good, you're full, you don't need any more. But when we're sleep deprived, that's decreased. So it's not telling us that we're full. And on the other hand, the other hormone, ghrelin, is increased. And ghrelin is the hormone that stimulates our appetite. So it tells us, hey, we want more food. So just think of that in that way, that our hunger suppression is nope, and our we want more food is up. So we're going to want to eat more food. And of course, we're going to want to eat more unhealthy foods. So I want to go into some specific foods and sleep, just so that we kind of have an idea of what we might want to be avoiding during the day, but specifically in the evening. So obviously this picture, I'm going to talk about sugar as well today. So certain foods have been found to decrease the quality of your sleep. So not just the duration, but the overall perceived quality. Okay, so if you've been joining us in a few different sessions, I've talked about duration, so that's 7 to 9 hours. That's important. But I've also talked about your quality of sleep, because even if you're hitting the 7 to 9 hours, if your quality is poor, you're not going to be feeling refreshed the next morning. So for some people, spicy foods can trigger acid reflux and or heartburn. So if you're a person that's the case, then you definitely don't want to be eating this in the evening, because you're going to be kept awake by it. Falling asleep can definitely be difficult when you have these types of food, and especially because essentially when you lay down, it often worsens those conditions. So if you're like, oh, I'll just have a lay down, I'll feel better, oftentimes it actually makes it worse. So then we're just sitting up in bed going, oh, I can't fall asleep, and just, that's a vicious cycle. So if you do like spicy foods, and you have acid reflux or heartburn, talk to your doctor about what you can do to be able to consume those foods, but then definitely be consuming those later in the day, and not in the evening or even at supper time, really, because we just want to be reducing the effect that has on us. Heavy and rich foods are also difficult to digest as well. So you don't want to be having a full, meal before bed. No, turkey dinner, no huge hamburger. Also rich food. So you wouldn't want to have something like, a big bowl of creamy ice cream. Probably a little too much for you. Also the sugar portion, which we'll talk about. So we want to be avoiding foods like that. You can eat foods, but we're going to be talking about what that looks like. Okay. Also, fatty foods, citrus fruits, specifically carbonated drinks and mint, have actually been found to trigger acid reflux as well. You may have already experienced this, even if it's not affecting your sleep. It could be any time during the day. You may consume any of this and then have that issue. I personally, get acid reflux every once in a while. It seems that it just comes on. So I try to kind of avoid foods like this in the evening, just because I'm like, oh, well, if there's the potential that it's going to affect me this time, I don't want it to affect my sleep. If you've been on these sessions before, I really like my sleep. So I definitely try to avoid those things, right? Mint is actually interesting. I didn't know that a little while ago, and then reading that, I was like, oh, that's interesting that I could potentially do that for you. And then lastly, which is all what the picture is sugar. So most of us probably like sugar in some form or another, whether you're a candy or chocolate person, or are you just like adding some sugar or some honey or whatever to your coffee, or are you just like baking with sugar, right? Even if we don't do the refined sugar, a lot of people go, well, it's fine because I did honey or maple syrup. And yeah, there's different pros and cons to that, but sugar is still sugar, right? So when we talk about sugar, it's not just refined processed white sugar. I'm talking about any sugar, okay? So when we think about it, sugar at any time of the day can increase the amount of times you're gonna wake up during the night. Even if you're not aware of waking up, it's actually gonna pull you out of that deep sleep. Remember, deep sleep is really important. So having it reduced can actually lead you to feeling more groggy and tired the next day. So if you are choosing to consume sugar at any point, we want to just make sure that we're kind of aware that there's potential it could impact our sleep. So we want to do it in moderation for sure. Consuming too much sugar can also lead to an energy crash. I don't know if anybody's ever had a sugar crash before. I have. It's not pleasant. So when you have a sugar crash, you get really tired. So there's an increased likelihood that you're going to have a daytime nap. Now, I've talked about napping before, and it can be okay for some people, unless you're a person that has ever had difficulty falling asleep or difficulty staying asleep. If that's you, you don't want to be napping because it's going to be taking away from your nighttime sleep. So if you are having a sugar crash, you're napping, and then you're having difficulty getting to sleep or waking up a lot, or you just feel gross the next day, then maybe you should be looking at your sugar consumption. So looking over at the chat, somebody's asking me about stevia. I'm not 100% sure if stevia is actually affects sleep or not. If you want, I'll actually just put my our health promotion Gmail in here. We're using a temporary Gmail at this time just because we're not able to get into the offices. You can send me that question through Gmail and I'll try to find an answer for you. Okay, thanks for that question. That's awesome. All right, caffeine. So caffeine is the most widely used substance in the world, right? I've talked about caffeine before a little bit. We're going to be talking more about it when we go into the Keep Calm and Sleep On, which is the last session on sleep hygiene. But we need to kind of be aware of caffeine with food because it's in so much food. So caffeine is a stimulant. That's the first thing you need to know, okay? So a stimulant is going to keep you awake. It is going to disrupt your sleep. So increases sleep latency. So studies have actually found that it increases your sleep latency. And when you're asking what that is, it is the duration of time from when you get into your bed to when and turn off the lights so you're ready to get to sleep to the time when you actually start sleeping. So normally we want that to be maybe about 10-15 minutes. It can actually increase that. So if you're going past that 15 minutes, maybe you're going like half hour, 45 minutes, then that's disruptive to your sleep, right? It also does reduce your total sleep time, which is the total amount of sleep that you're going to get in the night. So from when you start sleeping to when you wake up, that whole section. So that 7 to 9 hours that we're trying to get, it's going to reduce that. It also reduces sleep efficiency. So sleep efficiency is essentially how much sleep you get in a sleep episode. So if you're in bed, let's say, so from the time you get into bed and the time you get out of bed, let's say you're in bed for 9 hours, right? And your goal is to sleep for, I don't know, 8.5 of those hours, right? It's actually going to reduce that down. So maybe you're in bed for 9 hours, but now you're sleeping 7 or you're sleeping 6. So yeah, 7's still hitting that 7 to 9, but you're sitting in bed for a lot longer than you should be. And it reduces perceived sleep quality. So sleep quality is a subjective measure. So it's essentially how we feel that our sleep went. So if you've hit your 7 to 9 hours, but you're waking up the next day and you still don't feel good, you probably don't feel like you'd had a good sleep. That is your perceived sleep quality. So with caffeine, if we're consuming it, it can reduce that. And of course, if we are caffeine dependent, which most of the people I meet that drink coffee seem to be, you're going to have reduced sleep quality, increased daytime dysfunction, and increased nighttime disturbance. That increased daytime dysfunction is because you're dependent on caffeine to get you through the day, right? So I've met so many people that say, I need my coffee in the morning or I don't function. At Cold Lake, we actually have an in-body machine, and you can't consume caffeine for 12 hours before you test. And so we have to do their test first thing in the morning, because many people are going, I need caffeine, and they bring their coffee with them to the test so that they can consume it right after, right? So they need it in order to function, which of course, if we're having caffeine, that's a daytime dysfunction if that's what we need to be able to function, right? And increases our nighttime disturbance because it's going to wake you up more often. It's going to reduce that that time spent in that deep sleep and everything. Now, it's really important to keep. I've talked about coffee. It's not just coffee. It would be really easy if it was just coffee, because then people are like, I don't drink coffee, I'm fine. It's in a lot of different beverages and foods. So some of the examples of caffeine culprits in our day-to-day lives: chocolate. So if you're a chocolate lover, it is naturally found in cocoa beans. So most chocolate has at least some caffeine. Now, the rule of thumb is generally the darker the chocolate, the more caffeine it's going to have, although that can vary depending on, of course, how it's made. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're consuming chocolate, the darker chocolate you have, the more caffeine. Ice cream and frozen yogurt, if you're choosing coffee or chocolate flavors. If you have a breakfast cereal, if you have a chocolate or coffee flavor, so like a cocoa in there, that's going to have caffeine. Tea, of course. Decaffeinated coffee, it sounds like it's not going to have caffeine because it says decaffeinated. And it's actually, there's about at least 2 to up to 12 milligrams of caffeine in decaffeinated coffee. So it sneaks in there. PMS medication. So if anybody takes anything like Midol, it oftentimes will include caffeine as well, because it's a diuretic, which helps with bloating. And headache medications. So if you have any medications, sometimes they'll have caffeine in it because it makes it more effective in relieving headache pain, as well as some other medications as well. So just keep that in mind if you're getting a medication, to just read if it has caffeine in it. So somebody's asking, how far from consumption to sleep will caffeine affect you? It really depends on the individual, but the general rule of thumb is we want to stop consuming caffeine or in the late afternoon. So if you're going to bed, let's say around 10 or so, you'd want to stop having caffeine around 3-4 p.m. However, it's an individual thing. So if you're finding it's not affecting you, then that's okay. But if you've ruled out everything else and you're still not sleeping well, but you're saying caffeine's not affecting you, then you still want to take a look at that. Okay. Now, shift workers are a little bit different with caffeine, and we'll be talking about that on next session. Okay. So what can I eat? You can eat. So that first question, it is okay to have snacks after supper, okay? It's important to actually not go to bed hungry, because if you go to bed hungry, you're more likely to wake up because you're going to be uncomfortable. And when you wake up starving, you're going to go grab whatever is in the fridge or cupboard. That's easy. And unless you have had the forethought to cut up some carrot sticks, make those really easy to grab, you're probably going to grab that comfort food, right? So choose light snacks that don't contain caffeine, spice, or sugar. So a couple of ideas here is complex carbs. So whole grains, such as oatmeal or whole grain crackers, and you can pair it with some nut butter, whether that be peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, so many nut butters, but that will have a complex carb versus our simple carbs, which don't keep us full for very long. Half a banana with a handful of nuts, or you can, as this picture shows, they made banana sandwiches. So cutting that banana, putting some nut butter in the middle, and then putting the banana together. Something I like to do is I get a piece of whole grain. Well, I'm actually gluten-free, so I unfortunately can't do specific whole grain breads, and I am gluten-free because of an intolerance, not as a choice. So I take a piece of bread. I have my peanut butter, and then I put banana on it, and that's kind of a snack that keeps me full for quite a bit. A small bowl of whole grain cereal and some low-fat milk. Make sure your cereal has little to no sugar and no cocoa or coffee flavors. Does anybody have a favorite healthy snack that you eat in the evening that you want to share? Popcorn, yeah. So popcorn is a good grain option. We just want to be careful about adding that salt and that butter on it. I recommend if you can pop your own popcorn and then you add your own flavorings on it. Rice cakes, hummus dip, yeah. Almonds, some nuts, apples and peanut butter, low sugar drinks. Yeah, so definitely some good options there. Perfect. Okay, so let's move on to our next section, which is physical activity and sleep. So I'm going to ask a couple more polls here. So the first one here we go. What best describes your relationship with exercise? So I love exercising. It's okay. I could take it or leave it. I hate it. I only exercise for my job. I don't exercise, or none of these describe me. And I will just remind you, I can't see who's answering what. So you're completely anonymous in your answers. Okay, I can just see the total people who answered each one. So please feel free to be completely honest. Okay, so most people have answered here. So we're kind of tied. So we have a lot of people that love exercising and a lot of people that say, it's okay, I could take it or leave it. Okay, great. So let's look at the Canadian Physical Activity Guidelines. I just want to go over these quickly before we get into physical activity specific to sleep. So to achieve health benefits, we want to be aiming for at least 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity per week in bouts of 10 minutes or more. And it is also beneficial to add muscle and bone strengthening activities using major muscle groups at least 2 times per week. So here is your next poll. I want to see here who achieves at least 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous aerobic activity per week. You can say yes or no. Yet again, can't see who's doing it, so you are safe if you don't want to tell me. Don't know who's answering what. Okay, so most people are yes, some people are no. Okay, and let's check about the bone and strength, muscle strengthening. So I engage in bone and muscle strengthening activities at least 2 times per week. Yes or no? Okay, so most people have answered as well. So most people are saying yes, a few saying no. If you're in the no category, that's okay. This is just kind of an idea of, oh, there's something I could aim for. You can increase your activity. I don't expect you to this week hit that 150 or to hit that to 2 times if you haven't been exercising at all. Slow and steady is incredibly important because we don't want to be injuring ourselves. But let's go into physical activity and sleep in that relationship specifically, okay? And you're probably going to like this for those who aren't exercising as much, because even if you're exercising a little bit, you're actually helping your sleep. Because as little as 10 minutes of aerobic exercise can improve nighttime sleep quality. So if you don't exercise at all, we want to at least be exercising a little bit, getting active a little bit, because it's going to improve your sleep quality. For those who are hitting that 150 minutes, that's fantastic news for you, because you're definitely aiding in that sleep quality already. So physical activity has also been found to reduce the length of time for sleep onset. So remember that time when you get to bed and when you fall asleep, it's going to reduce that time. It's going to reduce the likelihood of you waking up during the night and increase the amount of time spent in deep sleep, which is really important for restorative sleep, so you're not feeling groggy next morning. And it can also reduce daytime sleepiness because we're going to feel more energized. Exercise has so many other benefits. I'm just listing the ones specific to sleep, just because this is not all about exercise today, but there are tons and tons of benefits that exercise has for you. So when should we exercise? So I'm going to ask you guys, you can put in the chat, what time of day do you work out? AM, so morning, midday, noon, midday, after work, anytime, morning, evening, early morning, whenever you can. That's a good answer for sure. Morning, running, AM. Okay, so a couple times there, kind of morning and then evening, afternoon, whenever you can. Yeah. So a couple people are answering whenever they can, which is great, right? Some people, we can schedule our exercise into our lives and have it at the same time pretty much every day, and that's awesome if we're able to do that. For those whose schedules maybe they don't allow that because maybe you have kids or maybe you have changing shifts, then we want to kind of try to fit it in when we can, as long as we're accomplishing it. And if we're accomplishing it, then that's fantastic. Okay. So I am going to go over the kind of 3 areas where you could potentially exercise, just to kind of give you an idea of the benefits of those, okay? So if you're a morning workout person, which I know some people said that they are, morning workouts aren't only good for keeping you consistent because you can't push it off, right? If you wake up and you go work out, you don't have a whole day where you can have excuses as to, oh, well, now I have something else to do, or, oh, well, I'm kind of slightly have a headache, right? We have no excuses first thing in the morning. So it can also increase the amount of time spent in deep sleep, which is awesome. And studies have shown that people who work out on a treadmill at 7 in the morning have actually been sleeping longer and experienced deeper sleep cycles than those who exercise later in the day. Also, morning, if you exercise outdoors, that's a really great sunlight exposure to get your circadian rhythm to say, hey, it's time to wake up, it's ready to go for the day. So that's a really good bonus as well. Of course, depending on the season, because sometimes in the morning it's not bright, and I mean, now it is, but in the winter it isn't. And when it's minus 40, I don't think here it gets to minus 40, minus 45. I don't think anybody wants to go exercise in that. If you do, all power to you. Yeah, Kevin. So, and vitamin D. Yeah, vitamin D is fantastic. Afternoon workouts. So for those who like lunchtime or late afternoon, so afternoons have been found to help you fall asleep quicker. So it can actually help with those who have insomnia, and you're going to wake up less frequently. Best results are found with aerobic exercises. So essentially, the exercise raises your body temperature for about 4 to 5 hours. So when your core temperature decreases in those 4 to 5 hours after your afternoon workout, it can act as a signal to your body, hey, it's time to relax and get to sleep. So that's a really good benefit for an afternoon workout. Now, an evening workout. So a lot of people ask, can I work out in the evening? This is individually based. However, most people should avoid strenuous activity in the evening, because it can, exercise can stimulate you. Like, I know for me, when I exercise, I'm not like, and I'm going to go to bed now, right? I'm pretty up and excited and ready to go. So I wouldn't be a person that could exercise strenuously in the evening. It increases our core body temperature, right? So that being said, if our body temperature is increased, our body's not being signaled to, hey, let's go to sleep. So it can make it difficult to fall asleep. If you want to exercise in the evening, or you don't have another option to exercise any other time of the day, I try to go earlier in the evening or do some lighter exercise. So maybe going for a walk, that's, versus, a jog. Going for a nice walk, yoga, stretching, those types of things. Don't go for a really hard workout unless you know it's not affecting you. That being said, I do want to make sure that if you're not fitting it any other time, make sure you're fitting it in at some point, but just try not to go too hard. So for those who are kind of all over the place, maybe some days you're able to get a morning workout, sometimes you're not able to until the evening. On the ones you can't until the evening, do a light workout so that the morning or afternoon workouts can be a little harder. So type of exercise. So we've obviously, when I was talking about the CSTEP guidelines, we talked about aerobic, we talked about bone and muscle strengthening. So I'm going to kind of talk about some different ones that might specifically work for sleep. So when we're looking at cardio, you can have running, brisk walking, cycling, swimming, etc. So any type of thing that kind of gets your blood pumping and your heart rate up, right? People like different things, but we want to definitely make sure that we're not just doing one thing, because then we're going to increase our injury. So for example, I really like running. Running's my thing. I don't like much else, but I have to make sure I do the other things, because if I ran every single day, I'm going to injure myself, right? I know for swimming, some people are struggling right now because of pools being closed here. So they're trying to find some different things that they like versus swimming. Cardio has been found to improve sleep and can help those with insomnia. So if you're somebody who has insomnia or insomnia symptoms, then definitely look at your cardio. Strength training, so that includes all types of exercises. Some examples, of course, here are squats, bicep curls, calf raises, lunges, push-ups, etc. Right? Tons and tons of exercises. It improves sleep quality, and it can help you fall asleep faster and reduce nighttime awakenings. And then lastly, I do want to mention flexibility. Flexibility is important. A lot of people forget about flexibility, and then they go to stretch, and it's like, oh, this hurts a lot. As you get older, of course, it's really important. I think most of us probably as kids, we thought we were super flexible because we were. And then I know for me, I need to work more on my flexibility because I like to move a lot more than just be stagnant. So it's important to do any type of stretching. Yoga is great. Right now, you know, a lot of the PSP staffs are doing yoga videos that you can follow along, or you can follow along on an online or an app. So it's great for relaxing the body and can be incorporated into bedtime routine. So if you're looking for a bedtime routine, yoga or light stretching can be added. So therefore, there's your flexibility, right? So if you're going, oh, I don't have time to really work out. How am I going to find time to do my flexibility training? Bedtime routine, okay? And we will talk more about a bedtime routine on the last session. Okay, so that is the information that we're going to go over today about nutrition, physical activity, and sleep. I do want to remind you that we do have 2 more sessions in this series. We are coming to a close. So the next session is on Wednesday, and it's shift work and sleep. So for anybody who's a shift worker or lives with somebody who's a shift worker, or maybe you might be becoming a shift worker at some point, it is a really beneficial one because we're going to be talking about you know, what specific tips and techniques for those who work shifts. June 1st will be Keep Calm and Sleep On. So we'll be looking at, you know, all the sleep hygiene techniques. So there'll be some that we'll talk about kind of in both, but it'll be the general sense of anything that could work for anybody in that session, okay? Right. And these are just the sleep resources to just let you know, these are some where I got some of this information as well, and some really good places to go visit. So sleeponitcanada.ca is Canada's National Sleep Campaign. National Sleep Foundation is from the States, and then sleep.org is also by the National Sleep Foundation, and it has some really good articles specifically about so many different topics, from lifestyle to bedroom environment to scientific articles, right? So there's tons of stuff there. So while I'm going to open it up to questions, I will put the link for the next session in there so you can register. I'm also going to add so Health Promotion at Forbing actually just created an Instagram. I'm going to put that in there. If you want to follow us, right now we're doing our sleep campaign. So we do have a lot of sleep information being put on there, and you can take a look at what we've already posted in case you were interested in any of that stuff. So I am going to put that on there just so that you have that in case you're interested. And if you follow us, you can easily just send us a direct message if you ever have a question about sleep versus having to email if that's not your thing. So I will open it up to questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box. If you want to ask something verbally, ask me for your mic and I will turn it on for you. And I'll just grab those links while I do that. Okay, so you're asking if meditation can help sleep. Yeah, so meditation is definitely something that can help for sleep. It can be part of a bedtime routine that just helps with your relaxing your mind and kind of turning your mind off, because a lot of people have difficulty when they're going to sleep to have their mind that's racing, right? Meditation definitely can be beneficial for that. I will let you know that if you haven't done meditation before, it's not easy at the beginning, especially if people have really active minds. So it's going to take practice. So stick with it. I would stick with it, you know, for a few weeks. And then if it's not really your thing, it's not helping you, then maybe look at something else. But if it's something that you'd like to try, then you want to try it for a few weeks versus one session and go, oh, that was horrible, I'm never doing it again. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, it looks like we have radio silence now. unless somebody's putting a very large question. Okay, we're good. We got some thanks. Good. All right. So I will leave you to it then for the rest of the day. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you on Wednesday if you choose to join us, which I hope you do. Thank you for joining us today. And hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day, whatever that looks like. If you have a sunny day, get out and enjoy some of the sun and get that vitamin D. Perfect. Thanks. See you all Wednesday.